This is Dish and Dirt with Gary Pickren, South Carolina's only podcast dedicated to the real estate agent craft. And now, the host of Dish and Dirt, Gary Pickren.
And greetings, welcome back everyone to another episode of Dish and Dirt. Your often opinionated, rarely wrong host, Gary Pickren here, coming to you from the beautiful downtown Columbia, South Carolina offices of Blair, Cato, Pickren, Castleline. This, the first week of April 2025. Couple things before we get started with our show today. Next week is Easter, so we will not have a Dish and Dirt next week, but we will return the following week with another new episode. If you're an agent in the upstate, we've got a couple announcements for you. If you like pickleball, and I know a lot of you do, like to play pickleball, we're going to have an event April 16th at the Commons at the pickleball courts. Kelly in our upstate office has put together a wonderful event for you. So if you're a real estate agent and want to play some pickleball or want to come out and try to play pickleball, get in touch with Kelly and you can join up and play. If you don't like pickleball, never played pickleball, but you just like heckling your fellow real estate agents, then this might be the best event ever for you. You get to come out, have a nice cold beer, and make fun of your fellow agents as they run around this court, tiring themselves out trying to hit a pickleball and trying not to get hurt, which is also the most important thing. So if you need more information about it, check out our social media, but you also can reach out to Kelly at blaircato.com and get all the information about April 16th and our pickleball tournament. Speaking of the Commons, we've been talking about our brand new office coming to the Commons. It is now done. We're getting access actually this week to the space, and our furniture should be in the following week. So we will be opening at the Commons on April the 21st. That will be the date our new office is available for closing. So go ahead and send your closings in now and get them scheduled for the Commons after April 21st. We are above the food court, so you can do your closing and go downstairs and have a beer afterwards or eat lunch. It'll be a wonderful place to do a closing. No other office is going to look like this. It is amazing how beautiful these offices are and just the whole vibe of that area. It is like the epicenter of Greenville right now. So we're very excited to have the office in the Commons open April 21st. In the Midlands, if you're an agent and love to party on Cinco de Mayo, we've got an event for you May 1st at the Tin Roof. We are going back, I think, about the fifth or sixth year in a row. It is a wonderful event. Tin Roof does an excellent job, food, beer. It's just usually one of our best attended events of the year. So you absolutely want to come out there. I always say it's like the first event of spring. You know, we've started getting some taste of spring here. It gets hot, it gets cold. But that's kind of like the first real estate event we have in the spring. So come on out May 1st and have a good time. Cinco de Mayo. Katie Page has already designed a really cool shirt. I know you're going to want to get there early so that you can get one. So now let's talk about our topic today. Our topic is we don't seem to get it. We're just not getting it right now. We're not getting out of our own way. We're continuing to do the same dumb stuff over and over. And we hope that either we won't get caught or it'll just go away. We keep trying and trying to hold on to our old policies and procedures of how we've done things. Nobody likes change, and we keep trying to come up with workarounds. And of course, what I'm talking about here is when it comes to commission. And we know it's been attacked. We know that the association spent $418 million in this lawsuit, and that all of your brokerages spent hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, almost $1 billion in total settlement. But for some reason, we want to keep doing the same dumb stuff. And when you look at it, when you begin your thought process of how do I come up with a workaround for a law, or I come up for a workaround for the settlement, you're already starting on the wrong foot, because what the workaround by its very name and its very nature is, it's trying to come up with something to circumvent, to get around the law or to get around the settlement because we don't like one of the terms of the settlement or we don't like how the law is being applied. It's not suiting our own purposes, so we're going to try to get around it. And so when we start from that vantage point, we're already in the wrong mind frame and we're already starting off on the wrong foot. How do we continue to think that these workarounds aren't going to result in us getting more legal trouble, more ethical trouble, or perhaps both? But we, some reason, keep doing the same insane stuff. It's just got the realtors hammered, the brokerages got hammered on, and we keep thinking that if we just stick our head in the sand long enough, then it won't come back to bite us. We already know right now there are still other lawsuits that are still working their way through settlement. The Gibson case, the Noselit case, the Penn case, all these cases are still out there. And comments are still being made by the DOJ. Comments are still being made by Catchmark and others trying to define what is going on in our industry. And so we have either got to figure out whether we're going to play ball and abide by the settlements or not. And if we're going to comply with the settlements, then we need to go in and comply with the settlements and not set ourselves up for a future lawsuit for failure to comply with the settlement. Kind of reminds me of a story one time I heard at a mortgage event. It's a parable. It's an interesting story. I always liked it. It's about a man at his farm sitting on the front porch, wooden porch with his dog. And this beautiful golden lab gets up and circles around and lays down and immediately starts whining. And the gentleman who's sitting there in the rocking chair beside him goes, "What's wrong with your dog there?" And he goes, "Oh, he's sitting on an old rusty nail." And he asked the farmer, he goes, "Well, why didn't he get up and move?" The farmer says, "Well, I guess it doesn't hurt enough." And that's kind of where we are in this industry. Is it not hurt enough? When is it going to start hurting enough that we're going to start changing what we're doing in this industry to start protecting ourselves from future lawsuits? Or perhaps a better question is, when are we going to start believing our enemies when they say they're going to come to us? And the enemy in this case is certainly is Michael Ketchmark and his group. They've told us multiple times they're not done with us, but yet we continue to ignore them. So let's talk about a couple of ways I think in this industry we continue to keep our heads up our rear ends. Right now, obviously, the first one is commission. Despite the fact that $418 million is being paid by NAR to Ketchmark, and millions of other dollars are going out the door as well from other brokerages, we continue to think there won't be another lawsuit and that we'll be fine if we keep just doing it the way that we want. We keep coming up with these workarounds. It's almost as if the realtors are being set up for Sitzer 2.0. I think there is going to be a Sitzer 2.0 if we're not careful. And even if we are careful, there may still be one. I constantly hear agents talking about doing workarounds, still worried about trying to get the word out that they're offering 3% or 4%, or somehow their seller's offering a co-broker. Doesn't matter, guys. It does not matter. I hear agents all the time talking about it. Somehow we've got to get this 3% out there. I tell agents all the time, if you were the only agent in Columbia, South Carolina, or Myrtle Beach, or Greenville, or wherever allowed to go on the MLS and put what your seller's paying in compensation, would it matter? And the answer is, of course it would not matter. It wouldn't matter one bit, because that is not where anybody is looking now to see if there's compensation at all. And I'm going to explain that a little bit further. But you could be the only agent in the entire country to be allowed to advertise on the MLS, and it doesn't matter. I'm hearing agents talk about this. I'm hearing buyer agents that are telling me they're calling listing agents and asking what they're offering. I'm like, they're actually answering that question? I would never answer that question. I tell you to make an offer. We'll consider all offers. It's so asinine. What are we doing as an industry that we can continue to go down this path of co-broking, of broker-to-broker compensation, when it doesn't matter at all? When is compensation guaranteed? It is guaranteed only in the contract negotiation, whether it's the Form 120 or some other writing or in the contract. Going back to the MLS, the way y'all used to get paid back in the day before Sitzer Burnett was through the MLS. Your broker and the broker listing the property had an agreement that if they put it on the MLS and they offered co-op and you brought them a buyer, then you got paid. There was no reason to have a separate agreement. Now you have to have a separate agreement. It doesn't matter what's being offered. It doesn't matter what's being advertised. It's all asinine that we're so wrapped up in what is the seller offering? Is the seller offering anything? It doesn't matter what the seller is offering, because it doesn't go into play until we have it in writing in a contract or Form 120. Let me give you an example in kind of a crazy way of what it would look like. So let's talk about that. Let's say that a listing agent was able to advertise, or did advertise, that the seller is willing to pay 75% to a buyer's agent. Would that ever matter to you? And the answer is no, because you can only get up to the max of what's allowed in your exclusive right to buy representation agreement. So if your agreement is not for 75%, which I guarantee it's not, you're not getting 75%. So I'd almost, as a seller, as a joke, say we're offering 75% commission, because it's a joke. It doesn't matter, right? You can only get what you've agreed to in your agreement. But let's say your agreement said you could get paid up to 75%. And let's say the seller advertised all over the world. He's got an airplane flying over his house, 75% commission. It doesn't matter until the seller or seller's agent binds themselves in a contract or in a Form 120 to pay it. So the offering is irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant what a seller or seller agent's offering. Maybe bring it back to a more reasonable number. Let's say that the seller advertises, they paint the number 5 on the side of the house. They cut the grass in the shape of a number 5. Every room you walk in, 5% commission balloons fall from the ceiling. Again, it doesn't matter if your commission in your buyer representation agreements for 2.5%, maximum you can get is 2.5%. So it doesn't really matter that they've been advertising 5. But even if they have been advertising 5 in the manner I'm talking about, they're not bound as a seller or a seller agent to pay you 2, 3, 4, or 5%. They're not bound to pay you anything. Just because they've been advertising that they're willing to pay 5% doesn't mean they're paying you 5%. It only means they're paying a buyer's agent 5% if it's written into the contract or a Form 120 or some other type of agreement like that. So again, it's completely irrelevant. It doesn't matter. I continue to hear agents saying that they need to advertise this, what we're paying. No, you don't. You don't need to advertise. You don't need to talk about it at all. As a seller, why would you even want to say you'd be willing to pay 3, 4, or 5 before a buyer asks? Perhaps the buyer doesn't want any commission. Perhaps they would only want 1 or 2%. Why are we going out there and bidding against ourselves saying that we're willing to pay 3, 4, or 5%? There's no reason for a seller to do that. Agents on the buyer side don't need to be calling a listing agent, asking them how much are they willing to pay. The answer every time a seller gets that call should be simple. Make an offer. My client will see all the offers and will reasonably consider any offer that's being sent. That's all. So don't ever say a figure. I mean, why would I, if you called me as a buyer and asked me what my seller was willing to pay, why would I tell you? Why would I even begin to negotiate against myself before I've seen your offer? My seller is willing to consider any offer. Put it on paper, whatever you need, concessions, commissions, we don't care, submit it, and then we'll determine. And what are we going to use to determine that? We're going to use a net sheet. We're going to look at the net sheet and see how much we're going to net. And that's all we need to have. So what's the problem with all of this? Why do I get so concerned that you guys are going to get sued here? Because I think there is another lawsuit coming from this. And if you look at what enemy number one, Michael Ketchmark, is saying, and he doesn't lie to you, he continues to tell you the same thing over and over, is that he says all of this is still steering. So what is steering? Steering refers to buyer agents or brokers either preventing a buyer from seeing a listing because it doesn't offer enough commission, or they denigrate a house such to discourages you from seeing a house. So if we have under the system where a seller's advertising that they're only going to pay 2%, and the buyer is saying, hey, they're only going to pay 2%, I want to show you these other houses, that is considered steering. Or if they put the house down so that you won't look at the house because they know it's not going to be enough to cover their commission. Steering also refers to instilling in sellers the fear that the buyer or the buyer's agent will not show your house unless you offer more money. That's also steering. And a lot of people are doing that right now. I hear a lot of people talking about this. Well, I tell my seller, if you're not willing to pay 3% commission, then they're not going to show your house. Why would you say that? That is absolutely steering them to a higher commission. And I don't know why you're doing that, because it's not benefiting you at all. What benefits you is how much you get paid as a listing agent, not how much the buyer's agent gets paid. According to Inman News, they stated the majority of commission lawsuits thus far have argued that a listing agent uses the threat of steering by buyer agents to convince home sellers to agree to a far higher commission rate than they would have otherwise. Even the Department of Justice has talked about steering. According to the DOJ, the participation rule restrains price competition amongst buyer brokers and causes them to steer customers to higher commission. So the Department of Justice, Ketchmark, and a bunch of other lawyers are all still talking about that magic word steering. So what did the settlement do about steering? Because that's what Ketchmark ultimately says he was trying to get rid of, was steering. Did it stop steering? And the answer is really not, but maybe so. Good lawyer talk there. We talk about both sides of our mouths, right? It did disallow advertising of commissions on the MLS so that you could not just go search by commissions and find the highest commissions and go sell houses based on that. Is today really that much difference than under the MLS? According to a lot of industry lawyers, it's really not. You don't have the advertising on the MLS. But if you look at what the plaintiff and Nosalik said about it, it goes, disallowing offers of compensation from MLSs as the NAR settlement does is illusory. For example, the exact same information can be posted on the exact same broker-owned websites. So what they're saying is the information you were putting on the MLS about commissions is just now on your websites. So you still are steering, and you still can steer to the higher commission rates. So when Ketchmark says he's watching you and he's going to enforce the settlement, why are you not worried that 3 years from now, when we're still doing the same thing, still advertising commissions on our company website, on our social media, on flyers at the house, when it doesn't matter And if y'all can't see how it doesn't matter, I don't know how much more I can scream about this. When it doesn't matter and you're still advertising 3% and 2% and 4%, when it doesn't matter, how do you think you're not going to get sued? I'm telling you, he's making a bank of these things. He's compiling these. He's got lawyers in every state. I know he does. He's got lawyers out there looking. He's got people feeding him information. So every time on your website you put this is a 3% offer on this house, or a seller to pay 3%, you put a big flyer on the house. Don't you think they're collecting this stuff? Of course they are. And so what they're going to do is they're going to come back in 3 years and say nothing's changed. You're still advertising these higher commissions to get agents to steer their buyers to your house, and you're threatening the seller if they don't submit to these higher commission rates to buyers agents, then no one will see their houses. And again, it doesn't matter. Nothing binds a seller at all. So in some ways, that kind of erodes what Catchmark is saying, because nothing binds them. So really, where's his argument even coming from? But that doesn't really matter, because they got plenty more money than we all do. Unless you have $418 million, I heard that Catchmark so far is going to make about $300 million off this case. So unless you got $300 million sitting around, he's got more money than you. So he can just bring the lawsuits and see where they go. But we're sitting here in an industry right now refusing to change, still worried on the listing agent side how much the buyer's agent is going to get paid. And we know they're watching that, and it's not a change at all to the system. So the questions are, if comp is only decided at contract negotiation, either in the contract or Form 120, why would you ever advertise it? It's not binding on anybody. What difference does it make? Why would any buyer even care what you're advertising? It doesn't make a difference. Why are we advertising something that's going to get us in trouble, which is not required to be done? I don't understand that. Why are sellers agents getting involved? Why do you remain involved in buyer comp? What possible benefit do you have of using your capital that you've built up with your seller? You've convinced the seller to list with you because you're the best. You're good at what you do. And now you're going to anger the seller and argue with them over how much comp they're supposed to pay the buyer. And we don't even have an offering. We don't even have a showing at this point. Why are we fighting over that? Why are we demanding that they pay me 6 and I'll pay 3 to the other side? What does it matter to you as a listing agent? It doesn't, and it shouldn't. Why? My next question is, why is anyone advertising anything to do with any percentage? It's just going to get you sued. But why are we not just waiting till an offer comes in? Why am I bidding against myself in an offer, offering all these incentives and all these other things that I don't need to offer until you ask for them? But the biggest question is, why in the hell is anyone still doing broker-to-broker comp? I don't understand why the industry can't get out of its way. Broker-broker comp in and of itself is going to result in another lawsuit. If I am convincing my seller to pay me 6 so I can pay 3 of it to the buyer side, and I'm advertising that all over the place, that's 100% what Catchmark is looking for. That is going to be where his whole argument is. You, the listing agent, is still controlling what the buyer agent's getting paid, which is none of your concern. You're still controlling, you're still threatening your seller if they don't pay 3% to the buyer side, they're not getting paid. The buyer's agents are still showing these houses with these advertisements. It's a lawsuit waiting to happen, guys. Can we please understand that and move on? We don't need broker to broker for this industry to work. We can make as much, if not more money. I've talked to agents who no longer do broker to broker. They're making more on the listing side because instead of arguing for what they make and the buyer's agent make, they only ask for what they make, and they ask for more now. In fact, Inman News wrote an article about how listing commissions are going up because they're asking for more, because they're not asking for 6 or 7 or 8. They're asking for their side. So they're asking for a higher amount. It's easier to sell. Plus, they're doing a good job of explaining what a listing agent does, which is not selling houses. It's navigating you through the process. On the buyer side, I'm having agents tell me the same thing. Years ago, if an agent only offered 2% and my contract was for 3, I took it on the chin. I didn't get paid that extra percent. Now I go back to the buyer and say, well, you still owe me a percent. We can either ask for another percent as a concession, or we can raise the price and ask for it, or you can just pay me yourself. And they're all getting paid. So I think it's solidifying commissions, not making them worse. So why in the world, again, would we be, as a listing agent, would you be involved in what a buyer's agent is asking for or getting paid? Get it in the contract. Let them ask for it. If a buyer's agent says, I need comp, or how much are you paying comp, put in your contract, whatever you need, put in your contract. I'll submit it to my client. There's a lot of minds in real estate right now, top minds, legal minds, owners of companies who believe this is the calm before the next storm. And if the industry doesn't change on how we do compensation and quit worrying from the seller side about what the buyer side gets paid, Michael Catchmark is going to be back in 3 years with another big ass lawsuit with another millions upon $1 million settlement. And this one will probably be worse because he'll say, I gave you the chance to do right the last time and you didn't do right the last time. So he's going to come back and make that argument. It's going to be an easy sell. It's going to be real easy. If you go read Inman News and look at what these biggest writers are talking about, they're talking about how agents are going on Facebook and in Facebook groups, talking about how much they pay for commission and how to do workarounds on commissions and how they do advertising and all that. It's all going to come back to haunt us. Let's say I'm wrong and Catchmark loses these cases. James Dwiggins at Next Home told us on a podcast I did with him a couple of weeks ago, he was spending roughly $100,000 a month on attorney fees alone to prove that he was right. And after a while, it wasn't worth proving you were right anymore. So Catchmark saying he's looking for teams. He's looking for big agents. He's looking for brokers. Let him build up for 3 more years and he's going to come right back and do it again. So that's matter number one. Matter number two, these JVs. We've talked about this on podcasts in the past. Douglas Miller, who's one of the lawyers in the Sitzer Burnett case, on Facebook, he said he's looking for 5 things. Number one, brokers who are advising agents to recommend in-house services. Number 2, brokers who give better commission splits to agents who refer title and other services in-house. Number 3, brokers who are giving better desk fees to agents who refer in-house services like title and mortgage. Number 4, brokers who are bonusing managers for capture rate for clients for ancillary business. And number 5, joint ventures with realtors, any and all of them. So he's not just looking for brokers, guys. He's looking for large teams. And when you got a lawyer who's just made $300 million, part of that, $300 million, don't you think lawyers in each state are giving him information, asking to be part of these lawsuits? Got the guy up in Spartanburg who filed a lawsuit against 63 real estate brokerages here in South Carolina. Why did he do that? Well, after the big settlement, he wanted to get his part. So he filed a lawsuit and he's going to get his part. So you can't tell me a lawyer like that is not already looking at Douglas Miller's post and saying, well, here's some people doing it. Because we all know who's doing it. There's no doubt about who's doing it. This is on the heels not only of Miller telling you this, but DC has already had 5 cases, Washington, DC, 5 cases where these schemes have gotten nailed. We're talking about the title insurance scheme where a law firm and a brokerage set up a title insurance company and they share the fees. Of course, the law firm's doing all the work, has all the liability. All the real estate agent's doing is referring the client. They've been here in South Carolina. You know who's got them. And they've had 4 cases that settled for $3.29 million in October last year. And then in November, they hit one company for $500,000. How many of you teams that are doing these title insurance JVs and these mortgage company JVs and all these other JVs out there ready to bet against Douglas Miller? So Douglas Miller is going to come after you and you're willing to bet that he's wrong. Let's suppose he is wrong and he wins. I don't think he's wrong, but let's suppose you win. You got $100,000 to pay an attorney. So it costs to be proven right. On a side note, I do think it's interesting that every time that I talk about these things, somebody in our industry gets mad at me, says I'm talking about them. I've had somebody in Columbia I was eating lunch with, and he told me I need to quit talking about his brokerage, about these things. I'm like, I've never mentioned your brokerage at all. In fact, I heard somebody in the upstate earlier this week at a meeting, one of the agents said, Gary said on his podcast, and of course the broker said he was going to sue me because I was talking about him. Well, I've done 220 episodes of Dish and Dirt. Listen to every single one of them. Not one time have I mentioned a single company name at all. Just sounds like to me it's a squeal pig. You know, the stuck pigs start squealing when you stick them. But even if I did mention your company by name and said company A is doing these JVs with title and they're going to come after you, truth is a defense to that. But I don't mention companies by names. I'm brand agnostic. So if you're thinking I'm talking about your company, maybe it's because you're realizing what your company's doing is not right. You have to understand that the Sitzer's lawyers have more money than Deshaun Watson. Yes, Deshaun Watson, that joke of a quarterback who ruined my Cleveland Browns. And they plan on using it. When your enemy tells you what they're going to do, believe them. Catchmark is your enemy. Douglas Miller is your enemy. And they're telling you they're looking at all of your JVs. They're looking at all of your force ancillary splits. And that's what they're going for. You know, a broker told me a long time ago, well, our system doesn't work anymore. That's why we have to have lawyers and mortgage companies pay for these big buildings. Sorry, but if your business plan, core business plan is selling real estate and you have to do all these ancillary businesses to make that one make money, you might not be in the right business. But continue to do these ancillary tie-ins, these JVs and all this stuff. And Douglas Miller will be visiting you at some point. Item number 3. Investors are still doing wholesaling. It's been almost a year now, We have a clear wholesaling law that says it's illegal to wholesale. Real Estate Commission has come out and set out guidelines, in fact, shown you examples of what is not allowed, but yet people continue to do it. Realtors continue to turn them into the Real Estate Commission. They continue to get cease and desist orders. We just saw an entire industry get taken to the woodshed over something that's been around for generations. Co-op fees on the MLS. How these wholesale investors don't see the next class action lawsuit coming their way continues to amaze me. In Arizona last month, the Attorney General he brought a lawsuit against a group of real estate wholesalers, title companies, and law firms accusing them of preying on these homeowners in foreclosure. Now, there was a scheme involved. There was some lying about how they were representing a charitable organization and the money was going to charity and things of that nature. But the bottom line here is, guys, that the realtors just got hammered for doing business the way they've always done it, which quite frankly was legal. And now you've got somebody here that is doing wholesaling closings that are illegal under our statute. And I don't know how any lawyer looking at that statute can't understand that marketing and advertising property in a wholesale deal is not allowed, but they continue to do them. That Arizona case should scare you, that they're not just going to sit back. I don't understand in this era when we should sit here and watch the NAR settlement and we think every part of our business is safe from attack. You're absolutely crazy. So I think it's time that our industry gets its head out of its ass and realizes these threats are real. They're not going away, that we need to stop with the workarounds on commissions. We need to stop worrying about the buyer commission on the seller side. The buyer side needs to stop asking the sellers what the sellers are offering and ask for it in the contract or in a Form 120. It's very simple, but we continue to make this much more difficult. Every time I go speak for a realtors group or a real estate agent group, whether it's in Charleston or Sumter or wherever I go, there's always one or two people in the crowd that tell me they need to be able to tell us how much money their seller's offering. I'm like, your seller's offering nothing. They're like, no, my seller's offering 3%. I said, your seller's offering nothing. Doesn't matter. When we sign a contract, then we'll determine what the commission is. But they're not offering anything because they're not guaranteeing to pay anything until we have a signed listing. If we can't get that most basic part of this settlement through our heads and realize that the listing agent does not need to be at all involved in advertising, marketing, or trying to compel a seller to offer anything, we're going to go down the wrong path. Let the buyer ask, show the seller on the net sheet what they're going to net, and they negotiate based on that. It's that simple, very simple. So we'll continue to monitor these matters, but right now we got to get our heads out of our butts and start realizing these threats are out there and they're continuing. All right, I hope you guys have a great and safe Easter, and we will see you back the week after Easter. Please like us, share us, and subscribe to us, and y'all have a wonderful, safe week and a safe holiday. Take care.